So tonight, while I have you on the phone, Aaron, tonight at 9 is The Normal Heart on HBO? Okay. So this is a project that's like 20, it could be 8, I don't know. But that's a project that's been in the works for like 25 years, since Larry Kramer's plays.
Ever since it hit Broadway, I guess, they've been trying to the big story I always heard was that for a long time Barbra Streisand wanted to do it, I guess.
And there was a slight controversy there because when they started doing interviews for this new movie and everybody asked, why did it take 25 years? Apparently Larry Kramer blamed a lot of it on Streisand and her immobility and her perfectionism really stalled it. And Streisand took great offense, and she said, look, I did everything I could by hook or by crook to get this thing to happen, and I just never could. But, it took HBO to come in there and kind of save it, which you brought up a point yesterday. If you could almost have an HBO AIDS movie marathon.
They've between this, Citizen Cohen, Angels in America, and the band played on. I think I told you, Jamie, the thing that I am surprised, I would have thought, they got, there's like, 12 HBOs. I was half expecting, at least from some of the other HBOs, Signature or whatever, for them to be, maybe repeating some of those other movies. I totally expected to see Angels in America and the band played on in repeats, but I don't know, maybe they didn't want it to take away from The Normal Heart, or they just didn't want to. But I would have at least the band played on, which is a film. As a kid, I think I was 15 when it came on, 93. I know that film got mixed reviews upon its initial premiere, but I always thought the band played on was very for all the information that it had to get into, and being one of those first films of that type, and for all that star power, I thought it was it was remarkably successful. It was more successful than unsuccessful. A lot of those actors really did kind of disappear into those roles.
Well, particularly, I remember. I always loved And the Band Played On, and by the end of that movie, I'm just a sobbing mess. But and it's really effective at showing the politics of what made it so difficult for any movement to occur in the early days of the AIDS crisis. And in terms of performance, Alan Alda was the revelation, because Alan Alda had not really embraced a more villainous persona until then the band played on. He's not a clear-cut villain, but he's cutthroat, that guy.
He's ethically dubious, I guess we could say that. And it was a great villain role for Alan Alda. It really kind of, you saw him in a different light. And then the big star cameos. I remember the one that I always liked was Richard Gere playing the choreographer, and he really was good. And Steve Martin was good. I think for me, I remember the one cameo that I thought didn't work was of all people, I thought was I guess Phil Collins. That's kind of the guy that ran the bathhouses.
Right.
That was a little odd, but overall, and it was a great show. It was terrific. Matthew Modine, Richard Mazer. Peter Gallagher, and and the band played on. It's a terrific documentary.
And Ian McKellen. If you remember Ian McKellen, yeah.
Ian McKellen, and then like I said, Citizen Cohen, which was a year early. Everyone talks about Angels in America, which is rightly a great miniseries, but before Angels in America, Citizen Cohen, James Woods, it really is kind of a photo finish on, which Roy Cohn do you take, James Woods or Al Pacino's? They're both kind of amazing performances, and they're both done differently, and so you can literally watch them
obviously anything in Angels in America is done far more lyrically than any other treatment of those characters, So it's kind of on a different ethereal wavelength with Tony Kushner's writing. But Pacino's Cohen, because as you know, I study him like nobody's business,
right.
And I like to think I'm impartial. But I'm just prone to love him anyway. But his Cohen, there's there's too many Pacinoisms that I wish he had muted a bit. And and in terms of delivery, there's like he'll always make sure he finishes a sentence before the pain strikes, and he goes, "Ugh," and he can't talk anymore. And I just find that like a little bit too convenient. Like, this pain will strike as soon as I finish this line. But if that makes any sense. But there are
I get it. But if
there
you
are
look at
very
the
subtle
James
things.
Woods one.
There are very subtle things that he does in that movie. Like from the very first scene when he's working all the different phone lines trying to woo Patrick Wilson, and he's just very slightly gay. And I mean, it's not something he overplays, but it's just it's there. And then the bravura piece of acting in the whole thing for me is his conversation with James Cromwell, where Cromwell's telling him, "You have AIDS. I don't care what you choose to call it, but it's very, very bad news." And Pacino's delivery of his monologue in that scene is just breathtaking.
Right. No. And then you go look at Woods, what he does, and obviously it's a more straightforward biopic, although it's a little unconventional because it's all these flashbacks from his deathbed, if you will, and it's almost kind of like a weird reimagining of the way they did Wired in a weird way, but more successful. So Woods gets his sequences. He gets different notes of Cohen. You get kind of bashful Roy Cohen. You get vicious Roy Cohen, and then and all through it, he never changes his attitude, and so you, the viewer, have to locate whatever humanity there is in the guy, and that's something that Woods kind of loves to do. He never kind of gives you a moment where there was a sweetness to him. He never gives you a moment to like forgive him or to maybe like him a little. You have to kind of look for it.
Sorry. Yeah.
So you have to look for that humanity in the character and decide if it's enough, if it's enough there to acknowledge or not, or if he was just a bad guy.
Jerry, we're talking about AIDS movies. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the normal heart is tonight. I'm sorry. I thought we were off tonight. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, bud. My fault.
That's all right. So, what AIDS movies are we talking about? Anything in particular, or
Well, let me just
HBO,
say, and so we're talking about HBO's like really stellar history of producing AIDS-themed films. I mean, they've been on the forefront before anybody.
Right. Yeah.
No, and the band Played On premiered in September of '93, so that's 4 months before Philadelphia. So that's something to keep in mind. Of course, everyone talks about the 1986, I think it was NBC movie, An Early Frost with Aidan Quinn. Now, I was too young; I didn't see that one.
I remember that was a big deal. That was a huge deal. I mean, and the band Played On was a big deal. And Philadelphia was a big deal. It seems,
and also longtime companion, which was I guess around 92.
No, 1990. Yeah,
91.
May 1990.
Yeah, I remember that was a big. Well, Bruce Davison, that was his big moment. That was when he was on the radar for a lot of people. You just named all the big movies of this period. There's been a thing that the normal heart is like, it's taken too long for it to reach this point. Do you agree with that, or?
Oh, of course, 25 years is too long, and it feels like the. I hate to say this, but it's the same thing that I said about Dallas Buyers Club last year, which is another AIDS-themed movie. It's like this movie should have been told. The story should have been out there at the beginning, when films were first starting to deal with this crisis.
In fairness to the normal heart, which I have not seen, but in the couple of reviews I have read, in fairness to it, they have done, from what I understand, a massive rewrite to bring it up to date. So it's not just 1985 text. So there is a rewrite that they did on this material, so it doesn't feel like we're seeing kind of a just a pure, an artifact from 1985.
And I do hear that what it does successfully is it really brings home the just enormous anger and humanity of what they were going through at that time, with people not fighting for their lives.
Which makes me wonder how much, then that anger is justified, but the old line is documentaries are, will always trump fiction.
Yeah.
And anyone who saw, How to Survive a Plague,
right.
Like I said, I don't want to pass judgment on Normal Heart. I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, How to Survive a Plague, it's just kind of, monumental in capturing that movement, that early 80s up until about 92, 94 when Clinton got in office. And that documentary is vital to anyone who's interested in the subject matter.
Right.
The other statistic that I heard that people were talking about these landmarks involving AIDS and pop culture. 1983, the first time AIDS on television. 1983 with an episode of St. Elsewhere. There was a patient who came in that had AIDS, and that was 1983 on St. Elsewhere. And then, of course, and Jamie, I'm sure you'll back me up on this, first song about AIDS, Sign of the Times.
Oh, yeah.
First song to even reference AIDS, not by name, but did reference AIDS.
Prince, a skinny man, died of a big disease with a little name.
Right.
Yeah.
Big disease with a little name.
Yeah.
So, 1987.
Well, I mean, if you want to go there, I mean, my dad treated AIDS patients from 83 to 01. I mean, that was when I first heard the term AIDS, was in 83. So he treated AIDS patients up until 83 till 98. And I remember I was at a ear doctor in 2002, and he just turned to me and said, "Oh yeah, your dad. He was the one who treated the patients no one else would see." And I was like, "Wow." I mean, but that was true though, because no one wanted to treat these patients. No one did. Mm-hmm. No one wanted to touch them with, like, no offense, no a 10-foot pole. No one wanted to even go into that area. But he did. So for better or for worse, that's what he did. But
we also have.
Rock Hudson was the one I heard. Yeah.
By the way.
Well, when Rock Hudson came around, but you didn't hear it from him that he had AIDS. I mean,
absolutely,
and that's reflected in that Pacino scene in Angels in America, where he says, "I have liver cancer. I don't have AIDS.
Right.
People like me don't get AIDS." Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead, Dean.
Yeah. I wanted to mention one particular movie, but before I do that, I wanted to. Wasn't Parting Glances the Bill Sherwood movie? Wasn't that also an early indie movie about the AIDS crisis?
Well, I know it had I know it had a gay character. I can't remember if Steve Buscemi's character. I know the character was gay. I wasn't sure of the character. I was going to mention Parting Glances, but I couldn't remember if the character had AIDS or not. I do know the character.
I think that figures. I think that figures in the movie. But for me, the absolute best AIDS movie that I've ever seen is a documentary that was made also in the early '90s called Silver Lake Life: The View from Here, and it's possibly the most intimate portrayal of it, because it's really a documentary that's directed by both partners in the relationship in the movie, and of course one of them is dying of AIDS, but and it is ridiculously intimate and absolutely devastating. I still think that's the single best movie that I've ever seen, because it really it brings all the politics and all of the personal emotion into it in just a very tight kind of package, and
right.
And it really just kind of puts your face right into the horror of it all. Really,
yeah.
I mean,
you I want to, Aaron, stay on the line.
I want to settle one thing though. In Forrest Gump, But it's never said. But maybe we can settle.
Yes.
Does Jenny have AIDS or not?
Yes,
Yeah.
I thought
she did. I thought she did in that movie.
Intravenously, right? Intravenously.
Well, she said she had something wrong with. She said she had something wrong with her blood. Forrest, it's got in my blood.
Yeah.
So,
well, you see her shooting heroin in it, and I think it's implied that that's how she got it, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said,
well,
they
she's
don't
also
tell
quite promiscuous as well.
Yeah.
So
there's that. So she must be punished. So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel
I despise that aspect of that movie. One of the many things I despise about it, but